podcast. I'm speaking to Professor Robert Byrne about the Cardiovascular Research Institute and many other things to do with cardiology. My name is Terence Cosgrave. I'm the editor of IMT. And welcome, Professor Byrne.
Thanks, Terence. Nice to be here.
So, can you tell me, first of all, how you started out in medicine and what drew you to medicine, first of all, and then what drew you to cardiology?
An interesting question. We're recording this on the day the Leaving Cert results come out, so I suppose there's people around the country who've had to make decisions, and there wasn't necessarily a history in my family of medicine or a medical professional activity, but I suppose I had an interest in science and people, and that naturally lent itself to thinking about a career in medicine. So that led me then to study at University College Dublin and the Mater Hospital, and yeah, that's how it worked out.
And you're kind of unusual in that way because a lot of doctors have family history, but you studied medicine and then how did you end up getting into cardiology, or what attracted you to cardiology?
Yeah, I suppose what attracted me to cardiology is what attracts many people, in that it is a medical specialty, but it's also procedure based, and there, you know, you can work a lot on diagnosis, but there's also a lot of treatment options, both medical and device related. As with anything in life, I suppose you get into something and uh, find out soon enough whether or not you like it. And my exposure to cardiology came when I did a rotation for 6 months as part of the SHO scheme to the Mayo Clinic in Arizona, and there the specialty that you were allocated to was cardiology. So actually, I think that's where the idea of a longer term career in cardiology came from, was from that 6 month rotation. Prior to that, I think it wasn't quite clear.
Right, and then how did you progress from there, and where did you go, and what did you study? What were you, how did you develop your expertise?
Yeah, so after that, then you finish your SHO scheme. Obviously, you get your memberships, and then apply for SPR scheme. And I was lucky to secure a place on the as a specialist registrar. And then, as is the case for many doctors in Ireland, you get a tour of the country, working in various hospitals from Wexford to Letterkenny to Galway to James's to Beaumont, and all places in between. So you have to do a year of general medicine in your 6 years scheme. That was in Donegal, which was fantastic, really a great experience. And then you do your core cardiology SPR training over another 3 years, and that leaves you then with a 2 year block at the end for subspecialization and research, is what most people use it for, and that's where I looked at opportunities abroad and ended up in Munich.
And I presume you speak some German then.
Yeah, so I suppose I was always a little bit of a Germanophile and had done German for the Leaving Cert, and spent a couple of summers, as many people did at that time, in the 90s, working in car factories in Germany, and you develop a feel for the culture and how the country has developed, and of course brush up your language skills a little bit. So it wasn't a well-worn path by any stretch of the imagination. Wasn't very common for Irish graduates to go to Germany for fellowship, and it was a cold approach, an email address on Google, and 2 or 3 emails, and eventually the professor who was to become my mentor, Adnan Castrati, answered and said, "Yeah, come over, we'll have a chat." And we're fortunate in Ireland that in the cardiology area there are grants that you can apply to get you a foot on the ladder. And I was successful to win one of those grants for a research project, and that means that there's no major risk or investment from the host institution at the start until they get to know you. And 1 year rapidly became 13 years. So it was a long time to spend at the German Heart Center, but very interesting place to work.
obviously became fluent in German and all the scientific terms in that period. And you obviously must have developed fairly unique skills for an Irish cardiologist.
Yeah, I mean, what attracted you there was, was a couple of things. I mean, its quality of life is very good there. There is a centre of excellence clinically and with a strong pedigree in research. And that was probably the key hook. At the time, that research group had a large number of papers in New England Journal. It seemed there was one coming out every month or two. And that kind of research pedigree attracted you. So I did a research fellowship there and ended up transitioning to a PhD program at the Technical University in Munich, which I completed over 3 years, and then went back to do a further clinical year to brush up again after being out of clinical activity for a couple of years. And as I finished that, there was a permanent consultant position which came up, which I applied for and was very grateful to get. And then some years later, an opportunity came up to be deputy director of the department, which was also a very nice opportunity, and one which I did and enjoyed very much until somewhat out of the blue, an opportunity came up to move home. So we were well settled there, but this opportunity to move home and to set up a new research institute was one that doesn't come along too often, and you have to reach a decision and say, well, listen, if I'm not going to come home for this, then I'm probably not going to come home.
At all. Indeed. What was your family situation at that stage? You'd been in Munich a long time.
Yeah, so I at that stage I had just gotten married, and my wife Roisin Colleran is also a cardiologist, also an interventional cardiologist. So the two of us had positions at the Heart Center in Germany, and as I said, well settled there in many respects, but. This opportunity that came up caused us to think about it, and then with young children coming along, I suppose you make a decision, and very pleased that we moved home. You know, the reverse culture shock that people talk about it coming home wasn't really an issue. We settled in very quickly, and I suppose we were only back 3 or 4 months when COVID-19 hit, which threw everything into a little bit of chaos.
So you came back. It wasn't primarily to do the CVRI. Was that the job that you came to, or did you come to the Mater or to the RCSI, or what was your position when you came back?
Yeah, so the opportunity it was a new cooperation between Mater Private and Royal College of Surgeons, um, and the position was to be director of the cardiology department. And Mater Private would probably be well known for being a high volume, high quality cardiology centre, and the idea was to pivot it a little bit from a high volume, high quality cardiology centre to one that was also an academic cardiology department where research and education were embedded into the day to day activity. The collaboration or the cooperation with RCSI was definitely a very interesting feature, and I was appointed there as full professor, chair of cardiovascular research, and that gave me fantastic opportunities in terms of the supports of the university to get a research and education program up and running. And CVRI, or Cardiovascular Research Institute, then evolved organically as a vehicle to that encompassed this collaboration between the two institutes, and the focus was on patient-centered research and education in cardiovascular medicine.
Ireland being a very small place, despite the Mater being a huge hospital and all that, and the RCI being a huge institution, but Ireland is a very small place for doing research. And you were talking there about collaboration. How does that work for you in terms of clinical trials and in terms of doing research?
Yeah, well, I suppose our ethos was, you try to get your own house in order first, and make sure that you have the necessary pieces in the jigsaw and a good infrastructure for onboarding clinical trials, getting all the documentation and paperwork, making sure you have good SOPs for everything from consent to data storage, etc., etc. And it was important to develop that. A second key element then is the environment that you're working in, and you could probably say late 2019, early 2020 was good timing, because the medical technology and device industry in Ireland had a little bit of time to bed in, well supported by the government through a number of enterprises and support schemes. We had a National Research Ethics Committee that came along just at the tail end of COVID and really sped up the ethical approval processes for trials. So those were all things that played nicely into our hands. And then getting back to your question, then you try to develop a network of like-minded investigators, because the real strength that you can have in a small country like Ireland is you can have a good network of people to collaborate with. And then if an international investigator group is coming and saying, listen, we want to do a trial in Ireland, we can talk with them, say we've got good processes in place, we've got good ethics approval processes, we've got nice timelines, we can get contracts signed without too much delay, and we have a burgeoning network, if you like, of investigators at a couple of different sites, and the sum is greater than the individual parts, of course.
What sort of research? What has been the premium or the best part of the research that you've done here or been involved in, that you've seen, that you're most proud of or happiest with?
Yeah, I suppose it's been a big. There's been a lot of growth in this enterprise. So just before I answer that, we started with a commitment of funding for, I think, three and a half full-time equivalents for research, and I was pleased very early on to recruit a program manager who's subsequently become the executive director of the Research Institute, Amy Carswell, and we put in place a study coordinator, research nurse, statistical support, and that was really starting off in a dusty office, if you like, a dusty office that we were very grateful to have. And now over the kind of 6-year period, we've grown into a research institute with 22, 23 employees just focused on cardiovascular research, and a new suite of research offices on City Quay in Dublin. That journey focused on a few areas where we thought we could excel at. One was outcomes research, the other was clinical trials, national and international clinical trials. The third area was an area called core lab research, where we provide core lab services to other research institutions who are doing projects and they want an independent body to evaluate their images according to certain protocols and provide then independent data back. And then the fourth area we thought we could be strong at was systematic reviews, meta-analysis. And so we kind of focused on those 4 areas, and education. And, across those areas, there's been a number of studies and things that we were proud of. One of the first ones was the Setanta study, which came in the midst of COVID-19. There was quite a lot of discussion at that time. Could COVID-19 lead to cardiac injury, scarring of the heart muscle, even in patients who seem to have initially recovered after COVID-19 illness? And there was a study from Germany which came out suggesting that these subclinical cardiac scarring was really quite widespread. And we said, well, that's not chiming with what we're seeing. So we set about trying to replicate the findings of the German group. And in the Setanta study, where we did a detailed analysis of all patients who'd recovered from COVID-19. And that was a very nice collaboration with a couple of GP practices. We said, we don't want a selected cohort of patients who you were worried about and sent to hospital. We want this to be representative of people who recovered in the community. And the long and the short was we found that we couldn't replicate these findings, even with detailed investigations. And we didn't see long-term cardiac damage as a major issue after COVID-19 illness. And then I think other groups subsequently showed something similar to what we did.
Amazing. So, what is the plan for the short, medium term future of the Cardiovascular Institute in terms of what are you looking at to do over the next 2 to 5 years?
Yeah, we certainly we want to continue our activity in clinical trials, and by having these national and international clinical trials, we can offer patients access to therapies where there may be unmet need, where there isn't a solution at the moment. So we'd like to continue doing that. I'm thinking of we did trials with novel medical devices, and we continue to pursue that. Novel procedures. There was alcohol ablation for renal denervation in patients with resistant hypertension, and access to this treatment was only possible in the setting of a carefully controlled clinical trial. So I think we'd like to continue to do that, and also to coordinate our own clinical trials, and having the infrastructure in place and bringing in some revenue allows you to build resources that enable you then to have the startup cash, if you like, to go and do your own studies. There's a fair bit of work that's necessary, of course, in order to get funds and grants to do these studies, and you need a little bit of momentum in order to get started. So I think we'll continue to focus a lot on clinical trials. There's one called the Streamlined trial, which we're very pleased to be funded by the HRB for around about €1 million, looking at different antiplatelet treatments in patients who have acute coronary syndrome. We want to work together with our colleagues in many sites throughout Ireland, and hopefully the trial is planned to enroll about 7,500 patients, and we'd like to contribute maybe 1,000, 1,500 in Ireland. We also have a study called Cyclops, where we're coordinating the trial from Dublin, from RCSI, from CVRI, and we have 25 hospitals in a network across Europe who are treating patients who have severely calcified coronary artery disease according to a protocol that we developed here in Dublin. And we want to see how does this protocol work when other centres in Ireland and other centres in Europe try to implement it. So is it feasible to implement? And we think it is. And then what the outcomes are of the patients who receive treatment according to this protocol. So we'd like to do more of those, our own investigator-initiated, university sponsored, by which I mean the university is the legal vehicle that takes the legal responsibility for these trials. So we'd like to do more of those. And I think the other area we're focusing on is doing a lot more of this core lab activity, because we now have a team of researchers here who are highly skilled and trained in core lab analysis, and we also have the physical resources in terms of hardware and software to work as an academic core lab, and to offer other investigators core lab services to help with their studies, which are generally done at a fee that's affordable for these other independent researchers.
So, this is all a million miles away from what would have been what a cardiologist did in Ireland 20 years ago, and the level of connection with other European hospitals and states and systems. So, how do you find the work? Is it satisfying? Is it frustrating? Could it be better? Are we well connected? What are the pluses and negatives, or pluses and minuses of working in medicine in Ireland as you see them?
Yeah, no, as it comes, as regards to, what we try to do is integrate research, clinical research, as part of day-to-day care. And I mean, that wouldn't be unique in Ireland. There are many other specialties and centres that try to do this. But where you like to get to is that you have a situation where most patients coming through the door, and we might see here 25 to 30,000 patients per year coming through the ambulatory environment, for example, and then we would have 5, 6, 7,000 patients maybe coming through the cath lab environment, and again a similar 5, 6, 7,000 coming through unscheduled care. So the idea is that we try to embed clinical research as much as possible into the day-to-day care of the patients, which affords them opportunities for new treatments, and of course you know, taking part in research projects, comparing yourself against the best centres in Europe, of course, it leads to some trickle-down effect in terms of quality and standards of care that you can offer, and keeps you on your toes and keeps the overall standard of care high. So, you know, I think we'd like to continue doing that. In Ireland, I think, as I said earlier, we're in a place now for research where really a lot of the critical enablers are coming together, and I think the ecosystem that the government has developed around medical devices and the pharmaceutical industry, of course, it's beneficial for the economy in terms of revenues that we hear all about, and taxation revenues, but it's obviously more than that, and it embeds itself in the community, it embeds itself in the medical community, and there's countless examples over the last years of close collaboration, particularly with medical device industry, with new startup companies, and it's great to be part of this ecosystem in Ireland.
Brilliant. Well, it's been great. Thank you for all of that. My name is Terence Cosgrave. I've been speaking to Professor Robert Byrne of the Cardiovascular Research Institute and of the Mater Hospital and RCSI in Dublin. Thank you, Professor, for speaking with me for the Irish Medical Times podcast. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, Terence.